Good morning. Welcome to Canning with Kate. I'm Kate and I am so happy that you're here to join me this morning. We are going to be doing potatoes today. I have quarts of potatoes that I want to put together, and I am going to be doing this as a dry canning. Now, I have to preface this with the dry canning method is not an approved method. But I have done it before and it is my preferred method and I feel comfortable doing this. So if you want to do more of an approved method and still follow this video, you can go ahead, when I am done, I will tell you when to go ahead and fill your jars with water. And that is totally fine. I just prefer not to do it that way. I've done it both ways. I have done it with water my first time, and I've done it dry canning, and for just our family we prefer the results of the dry canning. I think it turns out crispier and not as mushy that way, so that's why I do it. But you can always add the water at the end, and that's totally fine. All right, so I'm going to show you everything that I am starting with. I have my potatoes in this giant bowl of water. I have already chopped them up to my preferred thickness and size. I have yellow potatoes. I did not skin them. And so if you prefer to take off the peel, you can go for it and take off those peels. I did that the first time because I thought that I had to. And it took me hours to skin all my potatoes, and so I started asking myself, well, is this necessary? And I found out it's not. So if you don't want to skin your potatoes, don't do it, because it takes a long time and it's not necessary. But if you prefer them skinned just because that is your preferred taste and you don't want the skin on them, go ahead and remove them. But mine, the skin is on, and this is about the size that I like. You can certainly chop them smaller, and you can even make fries with these. I've made the long skinny fries with them, and those are really good too. But for today, I'm doing diced potatoes, and I'm going to be using butter, and I have my sea salt. I've already washed my lids and rings. And for my lids, I am actually using a new brand of lid. I'm really excited about these because the quality of your traditional lids is actually going down, in my opinion, and I know a whole lot of other canners believe the same thing. So I have heard of these, the Superb lids, and there's also 4 jars that I've heard of, but I haven't tried those. Superb looks like this. Actually, it feels pretty solid, which is nice. And then it has a blue seal around it. And immediately when I opened these and looked at the seal, I could tell a huge difference between those and, say, the ball lids. So I'm excited to try those. I have a mix of the lids today. All right, so let's get started. I'm going to take I have 2 giant bowls of potatoes. I had 10 pounds of potatoes that I chopped and soaked overnight. Now, you do not have to soak. So if you are doing this with me and you have your potatoes and you're getting them chopped and you are thinking, oh my gosh, I need to soak them overnight, that's not necessary. The soaking is simply to remove more of the starch from the potatoes, and it's more just for presentation. But it is definitely not necessary. So if you don't want to soak them, continue. Okay, so I'm gonna bring these over and we'll get these rinsed. Okay, so in the background you might hear my kids. Everybody is home this morning, and it's kind of a cleaning day. So hopefully they're not too loud. right, so I have these rinsed. I noticed not a whole lot of starch came out of these from the bowl. So we'll see what happens. So I'm just going to put these back and rinse out my next bowl. And then we will start the process of getting these guys into the can or into the jars and get these processed. All right, so I am done with the rinsing of the potatoes, and now I'm just going to go ahead and put these in the jars. Now with potatoes, they are going to shrink up after the processing, so don't be afraid to fill these and pack them in. All right, so my hands are clean. I've been washing so many dishes this morning and the rings, so don't worry about getting these too full because they are going to shrink. Now, I like to make mine with butter and salt, but feel free to experiment. You don't have to do butter and salt. I just like that it kind of gives a little bit of flavor right out of the jar, but it's definitely not necessary. You can also feel free to use different seasonings if you want to season your potatoes differently. Go for that too. Hold on one second. Okay, so feel free to. Mommy, look! So pretty. Feel free to use seasonings that you want, and if you don't want to use any seasonings, feel free not to do that either. You can just have completely plain potatoes, and that's totally good too, because then you are more free to use them in whatever dish and for whatever purpose that you want. We really enjoy using these potatoes in breakfast, so we just open a jar and put them with like olive oil or coconut oil or something, and so whatever oil you like to use in your kitchen, and fry them up with eggs and just kind of have like a skillet type of thing. My husband also likes to use them for tacos, so we'll make chorizo and potato tacos. Those are a favorite of ours. And they're super good for that. And then I've also just made them with mashed potatoes. So the mashed potatoes are super good. Our kids kind of were not sure about them in the beginning, because you have to remember that these potatoes are they're gonna taste so fresh and so much different than any store-bought potato mix that you're gonna get from the store. So we used to use the just the instant mashed potatoes and the instant flakes, and those, you know, I mean, they're good, but compared to making them like this and just mashing and whipping up your own mashed potatoes, like, you can't even, there's just, I mean, there's no flavor comparison. These are so much better, but the kids are used to, you know, the processed, or however they do it. They probably freeze dry those potatoes, but it's definitely a different flavor. So remember that and keep that in mind, because they're not going to taste like the box potatoes at all, which in my opinion is, you know, way better, because I think they taste a lot better. So feel free to experiment with these, get creative. If you're one of those creative people in the kitchen, this is a great kind of a blank canvas to do. I am not a creative kitchen person. I need a recipe, and I need somebody to tell me what to do and how much of it to use. Otherwise, you know, bad things can happen. But if you are somebody who is much more creative, then that's awesome. So get creative and, you know, try something new. Okay, so I still have some more potatoes, but I only have room in my canner for 7 quarts. So that's all I can do. Now, I'm going to just take some butter, whatever butter you are using in your fridge, and just take a pat. I don't really use a specific amount, just a little pat of butter for each jar. You can use more or less than what I'm using, and you certainly don't have to use this at all. Okay, so once I do this, I'm just going to put a teaspoon of salt into each jar, and then I'm going to put the lids on. So this is a super easy recipe, so I love it, and it creates so many options for meals, and it has been a lifesaver on multiple occasions for our family, just because of the ease and the quickness that you can whip something up. You can put these in soups, you can put it in stews, you can mash them, fry them, whatever you want to use with potatoes. Alright, so everything is in my jars and I'm going to put in. Now is the time, so if you don't want to do a dry canning potato, then you would fill these up with cold water. Okay, so everything in here is cold, so that's why I'm saying cold water, because all my food is cold. It's going to go into a cold canner. So you don't want to do boiling water in cold jars with a cold canner. That would not end well. So I'm going to go ahead and get a rag, a clean rag, just wipe down my my rims, and then start putting on the rings, or the lids and the rings. All right, I'll be right back. Okay, so this part, you just want to make sure you didn't get any salt or butter if you use that on your rims, because that will impede the seal and you might not get a good seal on these. So you can also use vinegar if you want to use white vinegar to clean your rims. I know a lot of people do that. I don't think it's necessary, so I don't do it. But if you want to, if that's how you do it, then go for it. Okay, so I'm glad that I got this, because I see that I did get salt on some of those rims. Alright, so now using your washed lids, you just place them on, like so. Now, I am somebody who does reuse my lids as long as they are still sealing. So some of these are going to have a label of what I previously used them for. And I do check them as best I can to make sure that there's no rust or nicks or bends or anything like that, dents in the lid. And if there is, then I know that I can just toss them, or sometimes I'll keep them and just use them for a different project, which is also a good way just not to waste them. Okay, fingertip tight. You don't want these overly tight, because if they are overly tight, then the lids will buckle. And while that's not a huge issue, buckled lids you do want to use first. So try not to tighten them too tight. There's always kind of a guesswork, and after you do this a while, you'll get more used to how it feels. But if you don't tighten them, if you don't tighten them enough, then they're not going to seal. If you tighten them too much, they're going to buckle. So I always just kind of recheck my lids, my rings, before I put them in the canner. I tighten them tight and then I back it off a little bit. So that's what I do. All right, so I have 7 quarts of ready to go potatoes. This is what it looks like now. And I'm going to process these quarts for 40 minutes in the pressure canner. If you are doing pints, you would process them for 35 minutes instead of 40. So I'm going to do these, and then I'll probably try and get at least one more load in just to finish with those potatoes. And I will come back and show you the end results. And so go ahead, get canning, and I'll see you on the flip side. Okay, I just wanted to show you the cans once they're in the canner, and my setup now that I no longer have a gas stove. I'll show you what I'm using right now. Okay, so I've got all 7 quarts in the canner, and this is my setup.
My bouncy ball.
Okay, hold on. I have this little propane single burner stove outside. So this is not my ideal setup. It's what I have, and it's gonna work for me, and hopefully next time I do some canning it will be in the garage, because being outside, even though it's on a covered porch, it is not as protected from the wind as I would like. So it does get a little bit difficult to keep the temperature in the flame consistent. So I just wanted to show you that, because you know, whatever setup you have, you can can. So I know people do it a lot of different ways, and this is just my way for right now. So I'm going to go ahead and put my lid on and vent, bring it up to the venting. Once it starts to steam at a steady steam, I'm going to start the timer for 10 minutes, let it vent for 10 minutes, and then once it's vented, I'm going to put my my jiggler on so it can come up to pressure for 10 pounds, and then do it for 40 minutes for quarts, and 35 minutes for pints. And then we will bring that pressure, turn off the heat, bring that pressure down to 0, and I can remove my jars, and then I'll have 7 more quarts of potatoes on my pantry shelf. All right, I'll see you once that's done. All right, y'all, it has been the appropriate amount of time for finishing the canning. I just took these potatoes out, and the superb lids are pinging, they're sealing, and it's such a cool sound. It's way different than the ball lids, so I'm kind of excited about that. It sounds a lot more, I don't know, it sounds like a stronger seal, which is kind of an odd thing to say, but anyways, let me show you what they look like, and then after you guys do some of your own canning, let me know how it went, and it'll be awesome to hear how this went for all of you and how many you got on your pantry shelf. All right, so here's mine. You can see this right here is the liquid from the butter, and these look great. The pink stuff right there is my salt. So the salt didn't get real mixed, but I'm honestly not concerned about that. You can see more salt right there, but it's not a big deal. So there's all of my jars, and this will solidify a little bit, but it won't very much unless you have a lot of starch in your potatoes. But again, you just rinse off that starch whenever you want to use your jars. So, happy canning, and let me know how it goes. All right, have a wonderful day. Bye.